Let's check now shares of Apple. Apple stock is down a little bit, just fractionally, which is amazing since the company sold 61.2 million iPhones in the last 3 months. Mashable's editor-at-large and chief correspondent Lance Ulanoff is with us. All right, Lance, Apple is an amazing juggernaut, and Wall Street plays this interesting game. They started playing it last night. This has got to be the best it can be. I mean, listen, we've been playing this game with Apple for a long time. Yeah. And, I mean, they continue to conquer and conquer. They come, they see, and they destroy.
I wouldn't underestimate Apple. I just wouldn't do it. We knew that this quarter would be a little bit flatter on the iPhone sales compared to last quarter, which was so blockbuster, 74 million sold. And then they sold, over 60 million this time. But if you look at that same quarter last year, it was like 43 million. So it's a huge jump. Obviously, a huge vote of confidence for the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. They have some areas of weakness, which is really in the iPad area. When you look at that and you see that it continues to be flat. And except in Japan. The iPad's big in Japan. Who knew? And what everyone's waiting for on the iPad side is for Apple to really get going on the business angle. They have the partnership with IBM. Hasn't really bared fruit yet. Right. And, of course, we're waiting for that big iPad that everybody keeps talking about, which is really tailored for business. Right, because right now there's sort of an issue. It's somewhat cannibalization, right?
Absolutely. The phone gets to a certain size, and it's hard to distinguish it from the iPad. And unless you're really doing certain things, you don't really necessarily need both.
Yeah, and, Tim Cook actually said this cannibalization happening on both sides, from both the larger iPhones and the smaller laptops. Like, we just came out with the MacBook, the new MacBook, the gold one. You may have seen it, which is one of the smallest and lightest they've ever made. And that can, attract a lot of people who say, oh, if only my iPad had a keyboard. But Tim Cook insists that the iPad is going to come back, and I guess it's really going to be on the back of business.
Tim Cook also said there's overwhelmingly positive reaction to the watch. I mean, I guess if there's anything you could argue is that maybe they were flat-footed with respect to supply, but it feels like this watch may end up being something of a big win for them. And I honestly, I didn't think it would happen. I didn't think it could be a big one. I just didn't think it was going to be that much demand for it.
I certainly was concerned going into it that maybe it would be the first big miss for Apple in a long time. But obviously, the product, we reviewed it. It's the best smart watch I've seen to date. And what you're seeing is, once again, lines out the door trying to buy it. So maybe Apple didn't quite figure right on demand, or maybe they did perfectly, because when there isn't enough, people want it more.
Yeah, and a certain extra hype factor kicks in. I got to quickly ask you about the Apple Pay. Yesterday, Best Buy said, okay, we're going to accept it. Initially, they said they weren't. This looks like it could be something that generates mind-boggling revenues for a long period of time. I mean, it's hard to really underestimate, I think, what this is going to mean for the company.
I think those little bits that they get on each payment, that's so important. And this is becoming, again, it's another little juggernaut for Apple where people are kind of falling into line. Best Buy's falling into line. How long will it be before the Gap, all the Gap stores fall into line? Because they're holding out right now. Discover just fell into line. So people are seeing, and of course with the Apple Watch, you can pay with an Apple Watch without even carrying your phone. So more reason for people to say, yeah, let's be ready for this.
All right. Now I want to shift gears just a little bit to Baltimore because there were calls on social media. There was one tweet that actually went out yesterday that referenced The Purge, which of course is the movie where there was one day of anarchy, sanctioned anarchy. And apparently it sort of started with the students who then took their marching orders from social media, and the whole thing sort of blossomed into what we saw in Baltimore. This is not the first time social media has played this kind of a role in sort of domestic civil unrest. I mean, listen, I know there are pros and cons, but this is a tough one.
Well, first of all, yes, social media can play a role in organizing and getting the word out and letting people know that something is happening on the street. I am very concerned about this story because, to me, it sounds apocryphal, okay? There is this movie, which has very little relation to what actually happened on the ground. In order to prove, somebody's going to prove that a tweet or some bit of social media started this, you have to actually do some real digging here. You have to know that it was tweeted or placed at the time, at the date, at the place before all of this happened,
Sure.
and that enough people saw it for the
Well, they
organization.
put flyers out, didn't they? There was also flyers posted on telegraph poles.
And we have the tweet on screen, by the way.
Right.
But to the flyers,
To
and
meet
the
at the
tweet.
local mall.
But Lance, in this day and age, and when we talk about things going viral all the time,
Yes.
so it's not unusual that or it's not necessarily a major leap of the imagination that this one particular tweet could have gone out from one source and multiplied very quickly within that city's population.
I am very willing to say it is certainly possible, but I feel like the jury's still out. I think what you talked about, the ground stuff, the flyers, in some cases that can be more effective in real time. But let's see. I mean, no matter what, it's a super unfortunate situation.
It's the world we live in, isn't it? I mean, the Egyptian revolution was through social media as well, so it works both ways, but it's a very powerful tool.
Sure. And, maybe the authorities, too, will also find a way to be able, if the police had acted on this the way some of the schools did, maybe they would have had a better response, too.
Exactly.
So it could work both ways.
Yeah, and you certainly saw that organization come together very quickly on both sides, which I did think was quite shocking. So this may have been the catalyst.
Lance, good stuff, man. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks a lot.